What's up, everybody? Happy Monday and welcome to the Early Edge. It is a day off for most of you, Memorial Day. Let's remember the fallen and the injured and those who are currently active. If you know somebody you want to give a shout out to, put it in the chat. Otherwise, hit the like button. Mark Buckholz, Ed Anarumo, Brian Peterson, Gregory Hill. We see you all in there. We appreciate you being in here on a holiday Monday. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the recap screen before we bring in the stars of the show. Okay, so we take IndyCar out of it. We're 3-1, but IndyCar didn't go super well for Phil. I will say this, he did have the Indy 500 winner picked out on the site, but of course, none of these hit. So what is this? This is a 3-6 day. I'll tell you what, though. The 2 days prior to that, we were red hot. I believe 6-1 and 6-2 on Thursday and Friday. So overall, doing pretty well. We'll do a little bit better with the race cars, with the NASCAR, with the Indy stuff. We'll do that next time. But ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in the stars of the show. On this Memorial Day, we've got the A-Team, we've got Buckets, we've got Amags, and we've got Prop Stars. Proppy, we were talking pre-show. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with you because you decided to bring in a ton of soccer picks, mostly because you've been hot. I'm assuming that's why. But here's the thing. Before we even get to those picks, I'm looking at this screen right now, and there's a couple names that I'm 100% sure I'm not going to know how to say. So what say you? Are you just trying to trip me up at this point?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
You started that off by saying, Proppy, I have a bone to pick with you. So I zoned out until I heard soccer, and then I zoned back in and said, shoot, I think this is me.
No, it's you. I'm sorry, because Proppy's picks I can pronounce. Your picks I cannot pronounce.
Yeah, today's going to be a tough one for everyone. I'll try to give you some abbreviations, but this is my I'm mad at Sia day. So these are all very difficult to pronounce teams.
Proppy, I'm sorry I cast shade, but let me go your direction real quick, because before we get into Bucket's picks, your reaction to the Minnesota Timberwolves Dallas Mavericks game last night. I mean, it did look like, and I've been on the Minnesota Timberwolves this whole time, it looks like they may get swept. They're certainly going to lose this series, it looks like, but it looked like they were going to get back into it last night. They kind of like had this surge, and now it looks like it's over, right?
Hey, it looks like it's over, Sia. Credit to the Dallas Lucas. Luka Doncic is playing phenomenal basketball. Looks to be over whatever was ailing him in the opening round series against the Clippers. Dallas has been very impressive on both ends of the court. So yeah, Dallas looks ready to take on Boston in the NBA Finals. I think this is going to be a much more competitive series than either the Eastern Conference Finals or the Western Conference Finals.
Amags, real quick. Vincent Calabrese says, Amags with the poverty franchise on his head. What's with the Seattle hat? Do we have a Seattle pick today?
So usually I want to like match up the pick with the hat, but today I did that, but in a little bit of a different way. So maybe actually he'll be happy about me wearing the hat today.
All right. That's a professional tease. All right. Well, I teased Buckets / Proppy bringing us soccer picks, but it's really just Buckets, and I can't wait I'm going to be like taking notes because I need to figure out like the phonetical way to figure out how to say these words that you're about to say. So you've got a few picks, and Buckets, you've got the floor.
See, I've had a bunch of people on social media saying, Buckets, wow, European season's over. There's nothing to bet. Wow, shut up. Okay, we've got so much incredible soccer here to bet still. We've got Bolivian soccer. We've got Bulgarian soccer. We've got Swedish Allsvenskan. And all of these teams are very, very difficult to pronounce. So this is maybe a little middle finger to Sia here, just because he's ruined my hot streaks so many times on the show. But let's start with the Bolivian Primera with a matchup between, drum roll, let's see if I can do this, CD Gualberto Villarreal de Porto San Jose versus San Antonio Bulo Bulo. That's right, some homemade teams that I should be wearing the hats for in support of, but I left them in my other apartment here. We're taking both teams to score at -130. These are two teams that have incredible offenses and two teams that have non-existent defenses. Both of these teams have conceded in 6 matches straight now. This is one that I do not want to overthink. I just want to bet that both teams have scored. Even at the juice here of -130, that is definitely worth it for me. Then for our second play, we are going to the Bulgarian First Division in a matchup between Botev Plovdiv and FC Arda 1924 Card Zali. And we're taking over 2.5 goals. The reason we're taking the over instead of both teams to score is I would not be shocked if 3 or more goals came from Kardzali themselves. This is a team fighting for a conference play-in spot right now in Bulgaria, which means this being the last match day of their season, they have to win or they're out of the competition. They will not qualify. This is a actual must-win for this club, and this is a team that is capable of scoring 3 or more by themselves against a weak Botev Plovdiv defensive side. And then finally, Sia, we go to one that I'm not jying. Let's try lying when I say that I looked in the mirror and practiced for an hour this morning just to still pronounce it wrong. We're looking at the matchup between Aidrats Fornegen, Kameraterna Norrköping, as they take on IFK Varanmo. And again, over 2.5 goals here. These are two Swedish teams that have absolutely, tremendously, incredibly terrible defenses. Defenses do not exist when these two teams play. I'm taking over 2.5 here at -130. I know that all of these plays have a little bit of juice to them, but all I'm doing today is enjoying goals, Sia.
I mean, it's funny because everybody's jumping in on the chat. They're like, Sia, Gregory Hill says, Sia, you are screwed. Lowdown 612 says, Sia, good luck. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. By the way, Lowdown 612 brings up, when Amags, when you were donning, because you're donning the Seattle Mariners hat, he brought up Ken Griffey Jr. is what that hat reminds me of, which like that was like a day in baseball, like the late 80s, early 90s. If you have like a late 80s, early 90s player, like a Ken Griffey type, or maybe an obscure name that you want to throw out that you remember from your childhood, put it in the chat because I always like hearkening back to that. Proppy, you've got one.
Shout out Jay Bueller.
Oh, so that was his teammate, right?
That was his teammate, yeah, former Seattle Mariner.
All right. Was it Jay Bueller? I thought his first name was something different.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Jay Buhner.
Okay. Ferris Bueller, close. Jay Buhner. I get it. Okay. All right. I like, Buhner was completely legit. Those guys are really good friends too, off the field, which is kind of cool. All right, let's get to a SportsLine pick, Amags, before we get to your 2 baseball picks. We're going hockey. We're going 8:30 tonight. We're going Stars Oilers under 5.5 at -104. Again, we're on the under in this Stars Oilers game of 5.5. That is our hockey SportsLine pick. And if you want to take that pick, folks, well, there's an easy place to go. It's BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10 and you'll receive up to $1,500 instantly if your bet loses with bonus code EDGE. That's bonus code EDGE, EDGE. All right, we got to get to Amags picks. We got to get to Proppy's pick. We got to get to my pick. We're going to do it right after this message from our partners.
The Champions League final. This is as big as it gets. The kings of the Champions League. Dortmund are into the final.
Ain't gonna stop me now. This is the final round.
All his dreams coming true.
Dortmund versus Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League final on CBS and streaming live on Paramount Plus.
Roy Halladay, Jamie Moyer. Jamie Moyer's a good one. Man, he was around forever, and he was always pretty good. All right, Amags, you're pretty great. You've got 2 picks for us today. What are they?
All right, see, well, thank you. I appreciate that, saying I'm pretty great. And Vincent Calabrese here, I think I said that correctly as an Italian. I hope I did. You'll like this. And, man, the Ken Griffey shout-out is just awesome for what I'm about to do. Look, I wear the Seattle Mariners hat, but today I'm going to be fading Bryce Miller. So I'll turn the hat around a la Ken Griffey. And really, it's just about the strikeouts here for Miller. It's under 5.5 strikeouts, but I want to talk about that real quick. It's moved around a lot. It was like, when I first got it out on the website, -147, -150. Now it's moved to like -200 or even to 4.5. I don't dislike playing under 4.5 strikeouts at +125, but it is a different play. So maybe you take your unit size down and play a half unit on the under 4.5 instead of a full unit. Full unit for under 5.5. But still, I like the under and fading Miller. He's seen his strikeout metrics kind of regress a little bit here over the last few starts. And you can read my write-up on the website when I first put this out. But there's certainly a bunch of reasons to like taking his under against Houston. Faced them earlier in the year. 3 strikeouts in 6 innings. So I think he needs to take a pretty big step forward in order to hit a 6th strikeout here today. So I'll leave that where it is. Check the website out if you want to read the rest of it. And like I said, maybe half unit on the under 4.5 at good plus money. But secondly, bring you another plus money play here. We're going with Ozzy Albies over 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at +125. Shop around, try to find the best number on this one. But even though it's at 2.5, when you look at the numbers that you get on these, the prices on these plays for the hits, runs, RBIs, plus 125 is really in the upper tier. The plus 130s, like that's the edge of the good odds you're going to get. You're not seeing plus 150s. Rarely are you seeing something like a plus 140. So I like the plus 125 on the upper end here for a guy that, in his career, but even just kind of looking the last few seasons, over 300, well over 300 average against lefties. He gets a guy, Mitchell Parker, who, quite frankly, I just don't think is ready to face Ozzie Albies. I think Ozzie Albies is better than Mitchell Parker. So I'm going to take Albies over 2.5. And it also comes down to, you lose Acuna yesterday. It's a big deal for the club. I'm sure it's kind of deflating. Albies hitting at the top of the lineup or close to it. He still should have the guys like Olsen and Ozuna behind him. Nothing really should change in terms of driving him in when he gets on base. And I think he is very well good enough to get on base here against Mitchell Parker, he's allowed a bunch of hits in his last few outings. So I'm okay with it here.
Hey, Max, you bring up Ronald Acuna, and I want to kick something off to you and maybe Proppy's reaction too. How much do you think this, because I'll say this, I didn't look at what the Braves odds, let's say, to win the NL were prior to Acuna getting injured. But I look at them now, and obviously the Dodgers are favored. No surprise there. Phillies are second. Braves are third. Now, this is just to win the NL. They're third at plus 340, whereas the Phillies are plus 300. The Dodgers are plus 165. And then there's a drop-off from there with the Brewers, the Cubs, the Padres, the Diamondbacks. Any thoughts on futures for the Braves? I mean, is this kind of one of those shots? Obviously, for those of you that don't know, he tore his ACL again. How does this impact Braves futures if you're holding on to a ticket? And do you like another team, whether it be a dark horse below them, or do we just ride the Phillies, for example, or the Dodgers going into the NLCS?
So real quick, I guess I'll just start with this. I think there's a lot of reasons to like the Phillies that I still feel very strongly about. With their pitching, their upper, their 1, 2, 3, even into their fourth, like it's tough. But also with the Braves, like Acuna wasn't looking like he was last year. So when you lose, I get it's a big piece. It also changes game plans. But at the end of the day, like the actual production on paper, I had a buddy message me this morning. He said, "Thank God I can drop Acuna to pick up, I don't know, somebody like Kerry Carpenter or something." Like it was no, in terms of points scored this year, especially in fantasy, we play in a points league. It's been rough. So the production, while losing Acuna is always terrible, the actual production I don't think is such a major fall off as maybe it's being made out to be, at least for what it was right now. Of course, we think he would have improved, but that's my thought on it.
Proppy, your reaction?
I tend to back up what Amags said.
Fair enough. All right. By the way, Bradley Jacob says Jim Abbott, one-handed pitcher. Jim Abbott was impressive. Keith Hernandez says Taylor DeHart. Jason Pogwist references Mark Grace, Ali Lonzak, Mo Vaughn. A lot of good old-timey names. Of course, most of these are from like the 2000s as opposed to the real old-timers, but absolutely love these shout-outs. All right. I look at this, by the way, when I look at the NLCS, I think it's the Phillies for me. I think the Phillies at plus 300 is I don't think I'm going to bet it right now. I'm not rushing to bet it, but I think that's the one I like the most. I don't like anybody under the top 3 teams. Like, for example, the Cubs at plus 1,500. Not super interested in that. Speaking of, I'll be fading them in just a second. That's actually a good lead into my first 5 play. I'm going Brewers first 5 money line here. I'm fading Justin Steele. I mean, he's been very fadeable this year. Gasser on the mound for the Milwaukee Brewers. He wasn't very good in his start against the Marlins, not very good at all. But when you just look at his overall numbers, they're pretty good. You look at his expected ERA, pretty good. And again, the Cubs, if you saw them on Sunday Night Baseball, you had to wait 2.5 hours, right? Because that game against the Cardinals went super late. It didn't end till 12. Then they have to travel to Milwaukee. I just think this is for an afternoon game, mind you. I think this one is at 4:10. I think this is going to be a pretty sleepy game for the Chicago Cubs. And again, I don't know. I'm still not sure how good of a pitcher Gasser is. But I do know Justin Steele, I still think is fadeable right now. And even though Gasser had a really bad outing last time out, overall, he's been pretty good. So give me the team that's going to be sort of road weary with a late Sunday Night Baseball game. Give me the Brewers at home, first 5 money line, minus 112. All right, that's my pick. Daryl Strawberry says Jay Metz. Absolutely love it. Scott says Jay Buhner. Backing up Proppy, John Kruk from Judah Baker, Lou Piniella from Scott, Carney Langford. Is that Lansford or Langford from Jeff Sternberg? All right. Proppy, you've got 2 picks. One is in baseball and one is in the National Basketball Association. You've got the floor.
All right, let's start with baseball here. First and foremost, shout out to the great Ricky Bottalico. That is one of my favorite names from yesteryear. I'm sure there's some Phillies fans up in the chat who will remember the great Ricky Bottalico. I'll never forget when he threw at Barry Bonds and they had a brawl back in the mid-90s. Great moment for us Phillies fans. But yeah, I'm going to start with fading Austin Gomber. I'm going to go under 17.5 outs for the Rockies pitcher. This really has to do with the matchup against the Cleveland Guardians. The Guardians have been playing great baseball all season long, but they've been particularly adept at hitting left-handed pitching. They possess the second highest OPS against opposing southpaws this season. Gomber has been really good this season. He's gone over 6 innings, I believe, in 5 consecutive starts. But considering this game's at Coors Field, obviously a positive hitting environment here, facing a team like Cleveland, who's as good as any lineup in baseball right now against lefties. I think this is a really good spot to fade him. This one opened around plus 125, is down to about minus 125. That's roughly the threshold. I'm comfortable playing it probably down to minus 130, minus 135. Beyond that, though, I'd probably pass if you're getting a number worse than minus 135 here. And then jumping over to the hardwood, the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm going to fade Big Al Horford. I'm going under 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists for the Celtics big man, who's been playing big minutes throughout the postseason with Kristaps Porzingis on the shelf. But if we look at his median average at center with Kristaps Porzingis off the court, it's roughly 17.5 points, rebounds, and assists. So this is a big number for him. He's been held under in 10 of 13 playoff games in this postseason. And again, I just don't see Horford continuing to play big minutes. I think they're going to be careful with him. I think he'll play upwards of 30 to 32 minutes here. And I just don't think his statistical output is sustainable. And we'll see a little drop off here. So I'm going to go under 20.5 PRA for Al Horford, under 17.5 or fewer than 6 innings pitched for Austin Gomber. And shout out to Ricky Bottalico.
All right, we got to go around the horn one last time. Buckets, I'm going to go to you too. I just want to know if you can think of a baseball player's name that's like not what we haven't discussed on the show. I want to go around because the chat, Buckets and Amags and Proppy, like they're going off with it. Ryan Klesko was just named, which is like such a great reference. BJ Suroff, Edgar Martinez, Tino Martinez. What did we get? Jorge Cantu, Oral Hershiser, Julio Franco, Gary Sheffield, Sean Dunston. Love these names. Buckets. Any old-timey or maybe 10 years ago baseball players that you want to reference?
Sia, I've put 6 in the chat already, and you're just ignoring them. So I can repeat
really?
them if you want me to, but I said Dmitry Petrovic, I said Pete Wheeler, I said Pablo Sanchez, a bunch of absolute legends. Amags knows what I'm talking about in the backyard scene specifically, Sia.
I saw those names, and I didn't think they were baseball names. Am I being punked here? Like, are those...
Hey, Mags, you want to jump in here real quick?
You didn't think Pablo Sanchez, the greatest baseball player to ever live, was a baseball name?
That one sounded baseball-y, but the Dmitry like Petrov or whatever.
Did you ever play backyard sports when you were a kid on the computer?
On the computer, no. I went outside and played sports.
Oh, no, you're missing out then. Yeah, no, I'm not. Hank Aaron, I think that's a guy probably that played.
Yes!
Also him.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go. Attaboy. Here we go. Mickey Tettleton, Kirby Puckett. We can literally do this all day, but we actually can't. Amags, any other shout outs you want to give before we get to the recap screen?
No, I said Jorge Cantu. I love the way he wore his helmet.
All right. And Proppy, we leave anybody out?
Of course we did. Mickey Morandini, Wild Thing, Mitch Williams. Shout out to all the great Philadelphia Phillies, Darren Dalton as well, Lenny Dykstra. The 90s Phillies were just the team. They were so gritty. That was my favorite team ever to root for. So all the Phillies fans in the chat will know what I'm talking about.
Shout out to Mookie Wilson, also Mookie Blaylock and Pearl Jam. That's a reference from a couple of weeks ago. And Ken Caminiti, John Rocker. Wow, very controversial guy there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look. Speaking of controversy, I'm not even sure I want to read this recap screen. In fact, I'm almost positive I don't. So I'm just going to do my own thing with Buckets picks. Hopefully you're watching us on YouTube or you heard him make the bets. Deportivo San Jose and San Antonio Bulo both teams to score -130. I'm leaving some names out here, folks. Botev Plavdiv and Arda 1924 Kardzile over 2.5 -125. And oh my goodness, I'm using acronyms here. IKN versus IFK Varnamo over 2.5 at -130. I've got the Brewers this afternoon. First 5 money line -112. Proppy, Austin Gomber under 17.5 outs at -110. And Al Horford under 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists at -115. Amags, Bryce Miller under 5.5 Ks at -147. And Ozzy Albies over 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs at +125. Our SportsLine pick tonight, Stars, Oilers under 5.5 at pretty much near even money, technically -104. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the recap screen. Sorry for butchering all of the soccer stuff. Hopefully you all had an enjoyable show here. This was a really fun kind of a throwback to some baseball stuff. We covered some soccer, some NBA. We're going to do it again tomorrow. We don't take any days off, whether it's Memorial Day or anything else. We will be here for you every single day at 10 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your Memorial Day. Hopefully it's a positive one. Hopefully we sit back and remember the fallen and the injured and those who are continuing to be active in fighting for our country and all countries. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be on our show. On behalf of Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, Proppy, Buckets, and Amags, I am the Counselor of Cash. This is the Early Edge, and we rest our case.